Good morning, I hope everyone's well today. Thank you for watching, it is appreciated. If you find value in this video, give me a like and subscribe, do all that good stuff, and maybe share the video. It does help the channel out a lot, and that's always appreciated. I seen a online debate, or a conversation between two people on the right of centre, and they were debating whether we should be concerned about the hollowing out of Parliament and all of the powers that Parliament does have being delegated to bodies that aren't traditionally part of the British Constitution, such as the Supreme Court, Ofcom, OBR, all these quangos and institutions that were set up under the Blairite regime. I'm not bothered. I don't actually care. And the reason why I don't care is because the fundamental and grounding principle of our Parliament being sovereign is absolute. When you look at legislation, like when we delegated powers to the EEC, the European Union, in the 70s, or when you see about the delegation of powers to the Scottish Parliament or Mickey Mouse Assembly in Edinburgh, or the Senate in Wales, or the Assembly in Stormont in Northern Ireland. The text of the law and the text of the documents is all very clear. All power devolved is power retained. When the politicians say we can't do X, Y and Z because we were in the European Union, they were being disingenuous. They were being economical with the truth, because the treaties very clearly say that that power can be taken back at any time by the British Parliament. King and Parliament, the Commons, the Lords and the Monarch acting as one is the way we get any business through our Parliaments. The issue that we have, and the issue I've found that we always have, is when you've got a two-party system, you get no names who have nothing about them, and they're there to toe the party line, adhere to party whips, get elected, be a good little boy, a good little girl, don't step out of line, and they just vote things through, and they probably don't even look at the legislation before they vote it through. They probably get a abridged Cliff Notes version and just wave it through because they're scared. They're scared they're going to be booted out by the party. They're scared that the constituents won't re-elect them, and it's a conveyor belt of no names. That's why you look at the front bench on Labour and they're all shockingly inadequate. And more likely than not, it's usually the same with the Tories, because they get a specific type of person. The person that's not going to complain, they're not independently wealthy, and they depend on the large party mechanisms to get into power. This is changing, and it changes all the time. Now, I'm going to mention the 7 MPs that Reform UK have, because I am counting Rupert Lowe and James McMurdock. The reason why I'm counting them is because they were elected on Reform tickets. And there's some interesting stuff in the video later on that adds weight to my theory that they'll be back in the party fold before the next general election. These politicians, all of them, including my MP, the alleged racist Sarah Poachin, are extremely impressive speakers in Parliament, and Danny Cougar, who defected from the Tories, is an asset. Now there's 3 separate speeches here, well, 2 questions in the Commons and another in a select committee, that demonstrates the weight and the power of these politicians, and you just need to think to yourself, what would it be like if you had 500 of these in Parliament? Alright? So without further ado, I'm gonna play the 3 clips now, and then we'll wrap up later in the video. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is an open secret that the gig economy is a magnet for organised crime and illegal workers. As Christmas approaches and demand increases, so do the associated risks. Will the Prime Minister please explain why enforcement in this area is so low and what he will do to restore order?
I have a bit of experience about this particular issue with the gig economy. When the late Queen passed away, I went down to London and I stood in the queue, I think it was for about 17 hours. All of the marshals, all of the security along the entire route were people, shall we say, of a certain demographic that were not native to this United Kingdom, that barely spoke any English. And it's the same with all security. I don't know if you've noticed it lately, but in all the major retail parks up in the northwest of England anyway, the security at the shops and the security on the retail parks, they're all imported. Now, I'm not saying that these security people are necessarily illegal, but it begs the question. So James McMurdock is bang on the money. What is the government doing to clamp down on this? And while you're at it, when we're talking about the gig economy, he had an altercation with an Amazon driver at his house recently. So it might be an idea to check and make sure that all of these people have the right to work in the United Kingdom. You may want to check the car washes, the hand car washes up and down the country. That's where I would start. And maybe the nail bars and the vape shops and the 20 or 30, I don't know, convenience stores that are up and down the high street. How is it all these businesses can stay in business, but any reputable businesses are going out? They're going out of business. How is that? Alright. Are they funds for money laundering? Am I speculating? Am I reaching for the stars? Am I out of line? You tell me. The Keir Starmer's answer here is mealy-mouthed, and it's not impressive in the slightest.
Well, we're delivering a record crackdown on illegal working in the gig economy, expanding the right to work and facial recognition checks, which are really important. We're also introducing a new criminal offence of trespassing with intent to commit a crime through the Place and Criming Bill.
So that's the first one from former, or currently former, Reform UK MP James McMurdock. The next one is from a Reform MP as well, so we'll play this one now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst the Labour frontbench continue to peddle their own form of dog whistle politics, Reform UK...
It's utterly pathetic that this pantomime goes on all the time, and the MPs that are elected to represent us think it's fine to laugh and jeer like it's primary school. Grow up. It's democracy. It's the country that's watching, and anyone that's laughing at any MP asking a legitimate question like this is a disgrace. Absolute disgrace, and the Speaker should call this nonsense out and call it for what it is.
Reform UK are cracking on with the day job. Our reform-led councils are reformed.
Can I just say, you might say it's the way he tells them, but it might be worse, it's the way I tell them. Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our reform-led councils have already identified savings of over £330 million in the first 6 months.
£330 million in the first 6 months. Alright? Now, that may sound like a small amount in the scheme of things, and you are probably right. However, most of the budget allocated to councils by central government, most of that is allocated, about 80% of the funds that are sent from central government to local governments has to be used in specific areas. So the reform councils have got their work cut out, but they are making efficiency savings where they can. And the Prime Minister can't even answer this simple question that's coming up now.
And the Prime Minister may shake his head propped up by these gullible backbenchers, but here's the challenge. Will he ensure that all the cancelled elections from this year and the proposed local elections for next year will go ahead in May 2026? Go on, be a man.
So there's a very specific question here that Lee Anderson's asking the Prime Minister, specifically, are they going to cancel the council elections like they did last year? That's what the question is.
I didn't realise this was quite so good at stand-up comedy. Mr. Speaker, he talks about dog whistle. Last week, his leader said he didn't have time to condemn the racist comments.
Not racist. My MP is not racist. Continue. And yes, I would vote for her again. She's brilliant.
of his fellow MP for Runcorn. I wonder if we could ask his leader next door to him whether he's got time for his explanation for the stories in today's papers.
So a non-answer from the Prime Minister about whether elections are going ahead next year. Now the best one is Rupert Lowe. He was in a select committee talking about freedom of speech and how it's under attack. So I'm going to play this one now. This is slightly longer because it's not in the Commons, it's a selected committee. But it bears watching, he goes scorched earth.
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I'm grateful to the Petitions Committee for granting time for this extremely important debate following our successful petition. Most importantly, I want to thank the more than 190,000 British people who signed the petition that we had
You're welcome, Rupert. I'll do it again. You're welcome.
Initiated, calling for an end to the creeping use of prison as a punishment for what people say online. We wouldn't be sitting here today without their support. I think that pays credit to this petition system, one of the better functioning arms of Parliament. I want to begin by welcoming Lucy Connolly and her husband who are here today.
This is key. If you remember, Lucy Connolly was at Reform Party conference recently, and she gave a impassioned speech, and I believe she's going to be running for Parliament on a Reform UK ticket at the next election. Allegedly, rumour has it, she'll be unseating Whitehead Cooper, the former Home Secretary who was in charge when she was sent down. Alright? That would be interesting. Now this adds weight and this adds credence to my theory that Rupert Lowe and James McMurdock will be back in the Reform fold before the next election. Why would somebody who's associated with Reform UK be allowed? Why would Nigel and Zia Youssef allow her to attend Rupert Lowe's Select Committee appearance? If this isn't all performative, if there's a thing going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, that's what I think. I live on hope, and that's what I think.
She is one of the many ordinary citizens who's been swept up in the chaotic and inconsistent enforcement of our online speech laws.
Other people that bear to be mentioned, obviously Lucy Connolly is the headliner. Think about what happened to Jamie Michael last year, the Welsh Royal Marine, who actually pled not guilty, against legal advice, fought his case, was acquitted within 17 minutes by a jury of his peers. Lucy Connolly should have done the same. She didn't. She was given dodgy legal advice from the state-provided brief, barrister, lawyer, solicitor, whatever you want to call them, and she was sent down, which is a disgrace and a travesty. But from the Crown's point of view, they had their scalp because she pleaded guilty. That was her mistake. And then you look at other ones that have been sent down recently or within the past few years. You have Sam Mellier, and he was sent down for putting stickers about. And then you have Wayne O'Rourke. Again, he was sent down last year after the Southport atrocity and some spicy tweets he may or may not have said online. This is the issue that you need to think about. It may not be you today, but it could be you tomorrow. This is important to all of us. So I commend Rupert Lowe for doing God's work in the Houses of Parliament. He is one of the best MPs we've got.
Her courage in speaking openly about her experience has helped expose a growing problem, namely that the British state is now more willing to imprison somebody for a social media post than for a rape. That is not justice, that is not proportionate, that is certainly not the mark of a free country.
My opinion on this particular matter is it's about regime enforcement. People who are not towing the line, who are saying what they feel rather than what's allowed in polite circles, they get the full force of the law. If you are a protected client group or client class of the state, you get the kid gloves. That's why you get these cases. This isn't specifically what Rupert Lowe is referring to here, but it is linked. So I'll put these on screen now. These people don't get deported for their heinous crimes. we have to pay for them, and we have to endure the abuse that they put us through. Alright? It's blatantly two-tier. We'll leave it there. We'll let Rupert continue. I'm sorry to interrupt him, but I've got a lot to say.
I will give way.
And I do thank you for bringing this petition to this committee. Can you cite what analysis he bases that comment on about people being more likely to be in prison for a social media tweet than rape?
I'm sure the Honourable Gentleman has heard of the Pakistani rape gangs, which are currently the subject of my crowdfunder. And when you read the report that is coming out in March, I'm sure you'll agree with me. We are witnessing the steady expansion of what are essentially speech crimes, offences where there is no violence, no real threat of violence, and often no identifiable victim at all. Yet people are facing dawn raids, criminal records, ankle tags, and even lengthy prison sentences. For words, for arguments, for opinions that somebody somewhere claims to find offensive. I have my own personal experience. A late-night police raid initiated by false allegations from former Reform Party colleagues relating solely to words I had allegedly spoken. The party of free speech, indeed. The Reform leadership's bitter attempt to see me in prison failed, but too many others do not escape the consequences of such vile misuse of the system. We now have laws being used to punish subjective offence based on the most fragile interpretation of harm, enforced through discretionary and far too often politically skewed policing. A post that is deemed sharp criticism 1 month somehow becomes grossly offensive the next.
That's because it's open to interpretation, and it's the perception of the crime which causes the offence. So if somebody says something online and they take offence to it, or they interpret it as they've been slighted or they are harmed by it, that's enough to get a knock on the door from the police, and you'll either be arrested or they'll record it as a non-crime hate incident. Thank you, David Cameron. Thank you for the non-crime hate incidents, and thank you for the College of Policing. They need to be scrapped as well.
It is arbitrary, it is inconsistent, and it is fundamentally incompatible with a healthy democracy. I receive multiple death threats, yet the police take no action. Just one example. Online influencer Shola Mos Shogbamimu recently posted on X, and I quote, "I am against the death penalty, but for you, Rupert Lowe, I'll gladly make the exception."
That's Dr. Shola, by the way. She's descendant of Nigerian royalty. She's one of the biggest race grifters in the United Kingdom. But because she's a protected characteristic, as I mentioned earlier, you get the kid gloves.
This post currently has 2 million views. The Met Police have said no action will be taken. I don't want people in prison for social media posts. I also don't want such obvious two-tier policing. Shola walks free, yet Lucy Connolly was imprisoned for one foolish social media post, soon deleted. Where is the fairness in that? If these ludicrous laws are to be implemented, then it must be done fairly, with no political bias. Evidently, that is not currently happening. Is our prison system so efficient, so functional, so unoccupied that we have the capacity to put a young mother like Lucy in prison for more than 300 days? I think not. When rapists and murderers are walking free, even being released early, there is zero justification for imprisoning Lucy and the many others like her, particularly when the influence of such questionable legal aid is so heavily involved. We must be clear. No free society can survive with a people afraid to speak. Democracy depends on robust argument, dissent, and the ability to challenge orthodoxy. As George Orwell so presciently stated, if liberty means anything at all, It means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. Parliament needs to draw a deep line in the sand. In Britain, nobody should ever be sent to prison for an offensive social media post. Full stop.
This is my issue with digital ID. If you link it to your Facebook profile, your X profile, your online identity, if it's all linked together and you put out something that the state finds offensive, problematic, they can just cut off your life. You won't have any money, you won't be able to get a job, you won't be able to go abroad, you won't be able to drive a car, and people are falling for it. Well, I'm not falling for it. No way. No way. Not with two-tier Kia. Are you kidding?
That requires legislative reform. We need clearer thresholds in law, a robust statutory requirement that prosecutorial decisions consider freedom of expression, and a prohibition on custodial sentences for pure speech cases. The poison of two-tier justice must be forensically extracted from our judicial system. This debate is not about whether we are prepared to live in a country where liberty exists only for those who never cause offence, an impossible and undesirable standard. To Lucy, and to every other person who has found themselves dragged through the system for a post online, you deserve better from your government, and I sincerely hope today marks the beginning of a serious rethink in this House.
So we'll leave that one there. So all three of these MPs, James McMurdock, Rupert Lowe and Lee Anderson, are among the best parliamentarians in the House currently. I would throw in Nick Timothy from the Tories, and I would throw in Danny Kruger, obviously, but he's Reform. Let me know, do you think I'm right about these parliamentarians? Do you think if you had the calibre politician from the 7 Reform MPs across the House, people saying, well, what about Parliament being hollow? What about it not having the powers it should have? Rest assured, the powers are there. Any power devolved or delegated away can be clawed back. Principle of parliamentary sovereignty is no parliament can legally bind another. Remember that. I have hope. I live on it. Things are going to get better, and we just need to hold the line and be sure that we keep on saying what we need to say. I appreciate your time. You have a good day, and thank you as always for watching.